All right. Let's get started with the second episode. It's a little cold this morning. I'm about to have a climbing wall session again, so that's why I'm in the coat and the hat. Hopefully, that's not a problem. But I figured today we'd talk about at least some of the things that I see as being foundational for health. Any of my clients, they'll recognize some of these things. It's kind of the first four things on every treatment plan because, again, I think they lay the foundation for health. If we can get these things right, then it'll make a big difference with just about everything. Again, these kind of foundational principles, we need to get those in the right order and kind of get those taken care of. Then we can start layering in stuff on top of that that might fit more specific instances and situations. But one of the first things that I like to focus on with people is kind of a combination of diet and gut health. I'm sure everybody's probably heard by now the old saying that Hippocrates said that all disease starts in the gut. It does appear that there is, some truth in that, at least, that the gut tends to communicate with a lot of different areas of the body. There's gut-brain connections where they're speaking, vagus nerve, from a physical standpoint. And then we also seems like some of the microbes that we have in our body are kind of speaking and doing different things for us. Most of our immune system's also housed in our gut, so that's another area where that plays a big role. And the one thing I guess people often don't think about as well is that, well, we'll talk more about this later on, but the difference between genetics and epigenetics. And so most people think diseases are based on genetics, that, if your genetics say you'll get X, you're going to get X. And basis for that is a lot of times you will see like family members having the same things. What it really boils down to is more that the genetics, so, if your mom had something and you'll get some of her genes from her and then from your dad as well. And so that kind of goes together for you. And so you might be more susceptible to having the same thing that your mom had or the same thing that your dad has. But it's not a guarantee you'll have that. What seems to be more of that guarantee side is if you're exposed to things that turn those genes on so that that is expressed. And food is one thing that can turn on genes, things we're exposed to, chemicals, etc. So that's kind of the epigenetic side. It's all the things we're exposed to and what that does for us. And so, we can be exposed to things that help turn genes off in a good way so we don't have a disease expressed, or it could turn genes off in a bad way that would have kind of, those genes might have hampered a disease from being formed. Now they're turned off, so it's easier for that disease to occur. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense without getting too much into the weeds. But foods we eat can definitely have an epigenetic impact on us. They can turn genes on and off. And think about too how sometimes you'll eat stuff and you just don't feel good afterwards. You're not sick, but you just know that wasn't a good thing for your body. And so I don't think with diet that there's, in general, any one thing that's the best. So I don't think there's one diet that's the best for everybody. And I don't think there's one diet that's the best for you all the time. I think, what's going to be the best for you is going to vary throughout the course of your life, depending on a lot of other factors going on. And so, there's not this one thing. So don't search for this one thing. Just, see kind of what's working for you. And also don't let like perfect and optimal be the enemy of good. If things are going well and they're good, maybe we don't have to keep searching for more and more and more. That extra stress and searching for more and more and more might actually negatively impact things a whole lot more than getting that little bit better. So, sometimes good is good enough and we don't need to do more. But food can play a big impact. Gut health can play a big impact. It's not just diet, that can definitely play a part. We don't want to purposely eat things we know that our body doesn't like or they don't agree with our body and put an extra load on there. But also, what I see a lot of times in functional medicine is that people get afraid of foods. So I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the elimination diets. I think they can be very helpful in certain circumstances, and sometimes they are needed. So again, it's not an always or never. It's always it depends, and let's get the context and the nuance in there and see what might be best for you. But it plays a big role. Sometimes with the gut, what I see too is it might not be so much of a SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or kind of this imbalance there. There's a lot of that can be the cause of a lot of different things, or can be a contributing factor for a lot of different things, but that's not always the sole thing. A lot of times what I see is there's just more, the gut's inflamed, and that's what's hampering things, and that's what's making certain foods be problematic this time, not problematic another time when you eat. And so if we can get that inflammation down, sometimes that can make a big difference for people. So this will not be exhaustive on all these foundational principles. We'll kind of cover a little bit of them and then move on. So let's move on to another one. This is probably the biggest one, at least in my opinion, is stress. I don't think all stress is bad. I don't think all stress is good. Normally when we hear stress, we just think of it as being bad, but that's not the case. Think about exercise. We know it has a whole lot of benefits for our body, and it's definitely a stress on our body. That input from it kind of helps send a signal to our body to build up and be able to withstand that and more the next time. So that's a good thing. What I see more so is the way we manage stress, the way we respond to it. That's the bigger issue. One thing I'll tell my clients a lot of times is, if you could just eliminate stress because you made a bad decision, then great, do that. But most of the stress in our life, we can't eliminate. It's just a part of life. So then the question isn't how do we get rid of it, because there's no way to get rid of it, but how do we manage it better? How do we respond to it better? And so one thing I hear people talk about a lot is, they want to be resilient or they want to be robust. Basically, they don't want to be fragile. That's good. I don't think any of us want to be fragile where any little insult comes in and it really has a huge impact on us. But I want to be more than just resilient, able to take that and kind of either stay where I am or bounce back to where I was, or robust and being able to withstand more of it. I want to be anti-fragile, where I can have that insult and then my body grow back and be stronger and better than what it was before. So that's kind of the ultimate goal. Do we always hit that? Of course not, but we can try, we can do our best and see how things go. There are some supplements that seem to be helpful on this side of things too, but I think too often people want to rely on a supplement like they do a medication and just let that be everything for them. Those things can be very helpful. So I'm not anti-medicine, anti-supplement, but I'm also not like, oh, whatever issue you have going on, let's see what supplement or what medication fills that. Let's make sure we're covering some of these foundational principles. And then if we need to layer those things on top, by all means, let's go for it and do it. So what I see a lot of times with the stress side of things, again, is we've got that, sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight and flight, rest and digest, that we got to go back and forth between. So I think often people kind of never want to get in that sympathetic place, but that's a good thing for us. We need that at times. We just don't need that all the time. We don't always need to be down and rest and digest either, because there's times we need to be amped up and ready to go. For example, one thing that people don't like is, either they got a sporting event coming up, they got a public talk they have to do, so they're speaking in front of people and they're nervous. So they got the butterflies in their stomach, which again kind of shows some of that gut-brain connection. But people think, oh no, this isn't good. I'm nervous, so this is bad. I'm not confident, blah, blah, blah. No, that's just your body actually kind of ramping up and getting things moving, getting different processes going so that you can perform in that sporting event, so you can do well with that public speaking event that you have. So let's change the way we view that as, viewing that as a bad thing or a signal that we're not prepared, that, oh, this is my body actually trying to help me out and doing what it needs to do. So this is actually a good thing. And so I can use that to my advantage. So sometimes those little shifts in how we perceive something can make a big difference in how we respond. And then that can decrease that overall load on our body. I keep mentioning load. So I guess one quick aside, two things that I think are kind of very important regarding understanding health and how the body responds to things are cell danger response. This is from Dr. Robert Navio, and a lot with mitochondria and cells and just immune health. What those people actually don't know is we really don't know a whole lot about the healing process. There's lots of studies done on different disease processes and kind of what causes that, what feeds into it and keeps that cycle going. We don't really know very much about what stops that cycle and then starts a healing process to where we can kind of get back. So he's doing some research into that, some talk there too. Another key I think is allostatic load. So this is kind of evolution in a sense of the general adaptation syndrome from Hans Selye. And so, if we can kind of combine those two things, see how it does on our body, then we can make a big impact on things and how we feel. And so I guess just a very simple general way to think about it is if we get too much load that exceeds the reserves of our body, then we're going to start having some breakdown somewhere. So if we can decrease that load, we kind of let our body do what it needs to do. At least that's the way I see things. So we talked a little bit about stress, talked a little bit about diet and gut health. Sleep is important. It's not that complicated. We want to try to get as much good quality sleep as we can, but I don't think everybody's going to be able to sleep 10, 12 hours every night. I tend to get between 7 and 9. Very rarely do I get 9, normally 7 to 8. It kind of depends. And it depends on what I've done during the day. If I've had a harder day, say climbing and then doing some weights as well, then I tend to sleep 8 hours or so pretty easy. On my days off where I'm not doing as much and I've had more rest and there's not as much load on my body, around 7 hours or so tends to be it. I'll wake up, I'm energized, I'm feeling good, I don't feel tired, I'm not feeling like I need to do anything. So that's a good thing. Some of the general principles there I would imagine everybody's heard of is having dark, so blackout shades, different things like that, so no lights creeping in, trying to limit some of the electronics around that time. Another thing too, I've heard a couple different podcasts with sleep experts, and we tend to sleep in around 90-minute intervals. Obviously that might be a little bit low, so you might get a little less than 90, maybe a little bit more. Everybody might vary some there, but basically that's kind of the process for a full sleep cycle, getting through all the stages. And so don't be upset if you do wake up some during the night. That might be normal, might be the end of that sleep cycle, and then just hopefully you can roll over, go back to bed and sleep another sleep cycle. For me, sometimes if I do wake up, have to use the bathroom or something like that, then it's hard to go right to sleep. So, I might try for a little bit, but if after a little while I'm not sleepy, I'm not going to sleep, I'll get up and go do something else. And then when I do get tired, just go back to sleep then. So that might be helpful for you guys too. But I think Robb Wolf said he wanted to market this, and he's like, there's no real way to market all this sleep stuff, but he'd put a package together and charge, I don't know, $99, and it would be something to black out curtains, like a sleep mask, and something to cover up lights. So it was something very simple, but you got to charge this high rate so people will think it's something very important and impactful. A lot of times we think, well, we spend money on has value, so we're not spending money on these different things, well then it doesn't matter as much. But for sleep, it's crucial. That is when a lot of repair processes occur, consolidate memories, learning, different things along those lines with our brain. So we want to make sure we get that. Don't get too caught up on exactly the time amount, because everybody's going to vary a little bit there. And then, there is some research suggesting that going to bed earlier can have some bigger impacts or better benefits rather than going to sleep later. But we also are all a little bit different, so just see what works best for you. The next thing is activity, exercise, depends on how you want to look at it. Because some people, they hear exercise, so they kind of get turned off and shut off, don't want to do anything there. But our bodies are made to move. They're not made to move constantly, so we have to have those times where we're moving. We have to have those times where we're at rest, just like sympathetic, parasympathetic. We need that balance where fight or flight, and then rest and digest where we can recover. So too often now, we're sitting all the time, we're not getting movement, and our bodies just don't like that. Unfortunately with our body too, if we do too much, there's going to be breakdown, but if we don't do enough, there's going to be breakdown. We don't always know exactly where that middle ground is, but luckily it's a fairly big middle ground. It's not very, very narrow where you got to just fit in that one little spot. So again, that's where you can kind of decrease some of the stress on yourself of trying to get it exact. Just get close and be comfortable with that. I know for my type A people, that does not sit well with you because you want to know exactly what it is you have to do and exactly how much, but that's not the way any of this works. Nobody has those kinds of answers. You can get close to that probably if you experiment with yourself for years, but even then, we're not going to know exactly. But the good thing is, if you get close, you're getting 98, 99% of the results. That extra little bit hardly gets you anything, and definitely the time and effort, mental energy involved, it's not worth it. So just don't stress out about those things. Just let it kind of slide, roll off your back. There are different things I like for exercise. I think we can use different heart rates with different activities to help out with recovery. So it can help kind of get us in that rest and digest state where we are recovering from exercise that we've done. There's times where we need to go hard too, because I mean, if we want to get some improvements, we got to push things. So it can't always be too easy. But I think too often people think that the only way to get results is to go real hard, real fast, constantly. And if you look at most athletes in their training, that what you see on Instagram, what you see on different TV channels and things, that's that real high intensity, heavy duty kind of thing. That's a very, very small amount of their training. There's a whole lot more of their training that's more low level and kind of just easier. So there needs to be times where we're huffing and puffing, we're out of breath, or we're just exhausted and can't lift our arms, different things like that. But if that's all the time, it's going to end up being too much load and our bodies aren't going to be able to recover from it. So just make sure you're balancing those things out. Balance doesn't always mean like right in the middle. Balance could be a little more this way or could be a little more that way. Some of that depends on other things going on. If you got a real stressful time going on in life where you're having to deal with things at work, family, kids, whatever, then this real high intensity stuff is probably going to need to come back this way where there's not very much of it and there's a whole lot more low intensity. That way you have the reserves to recover from those things and deal with everything that's going on. So I guess that's it for today. That's a little bit about each of those 4 foundational areas for me. Like I said, that's on every treatment plan that I give my clients. I do have a supplement section too, because I do feel like supplements are just that, they're supplements. So if there's something specific going on, we might be able to use those supplements to help make people feel a little bit better. That way it'll make it easier for them to make those foundational changes that'll have the bigger impact on their health. Very rarely do I see a supplement have this tremendous impact on somebody's health and life and quality of life, and that's what they needed all along. I'm not saying those cases don't exist. I just think they're pretty rare. And even still with those, we still need those foundational elements if we're going to maintain things for a long period of time. So hope y'all enjoyed this. If you have questions, comments, let me know. And I guess I'll see you next time.